They told me to keep my head down. This is not America, my boss liked to say, and you are not Fellini. She laughed every time. I laughed too, weakly, but inside it scraped at me. Rome was never gentle, not with people like me anyway. She leaned over my cubicle on that rainy February morning holding a printout. The page dropped onto my keyboard, making a flat final sound. "You've spent company time editing your little videos again," she said, voice oily with satisfaction. "Do I need to explain why people like you never get anywhere?" Her name was Clara, all tight lips and expensive perfume. My coworkers turned away in unison, shifting in their chairs, busy with emails. But their silence pressed in as heavy as the winter sky outside. I thought about lying, but the screen showed everything: the timeline, the open editing software, my scratch audio. I felt my face flush. "I'm sorry," I mumbled. She scoffed. "Sorry doesn't pay bills, Fabrizio. Sorry doesn't make you a director." The humiliation in her voice wrapped itself around my throat. She straightened, eyes flickering over to the glass-walled conference room where the real meetings happened. "Some people were born to dream, the rest of us were born to show up. Be grateful you have a job." With a final look, she left. My hands trembled, rain ran in streaks over the window. Behind my monitor, I blinked hard and waited for the urge to pass. When the office lunch break arrived, I took my sandwich up to the roof. The tiles were cold under my legs. I could see out over the tangled apartment blocks of the Garbetella, stunted cypress trees, rusted satellite dishes craned toward a leaking sky. Rome had always felt like this to me, old, unsparing, watching with tired eyes. A text chimed on my phone. "My little sister Anna, dinner at home tonight. Don't forget Mama's birthday, and please not the camera talk." I typed OK and put the phone down, chewing with the slow, deliberate bitterness of defeat. My family had never understood the filmmaking. "Everyone wants to make movies," Papa told me once, shaking his head over sausage and beans. "You think Spielberg dropped from the sky in Ostia?" My mother only smiled, turning the conversation to safer topics, like the price of tomatoes or Anna's pharmacy course. Yet the nights belonged to me. From 12 to 3 a.m. I hunched over my desk in the dark, stringing together scraps of borrowed footage, a cinema of ghosts. Old friends acting for pizza and beer, stolen shots up by Gianicolo, laughter echoing down the Tiber at 2 a.m. when the world finally looked as broken and beautiful as it felt. My films were messy, sad little things, riddled with longing, and nobody wanted them. I sent them to festivals. I sent them to filmmakers I admired. Mostly, I received polite rejections or nothing at all. Still, every morning I woke up, went to work, hated myself for believing, for being soft, for refusing to let go. I carried the camera everywhere, wrapped in a sweat-stained t-shirt so nobody at the office would see. That night, Mama's birthday, the apartment was already warm with food and noise when I arrived. Anna stood at the stove, stirring sugo. Papa read the paper in his usual chair, humming along with the television quiz show. Mama wore her best earrings, thin gold hoops that made her seem lighter even as the years bent her smaller. The lasagna was heavy, rich. Anna passed me the bowl, smiling. "Still playing Spielberg?" she teased. Papa barked a laugh. "He still thinks he'll be discovered by Hollywood. No offense, son." I shrugged, trying to keep it light. "Who knows, maybe Hollywood will come to Tor Pignatara." Even Mama laughed. There was no cruelty in their laughter, only disbelief turned gentle from where. After dinner, they brought out an old Super 8 camera they found at a flea market, a joke present. Everyone laughed as Papa mimed shooting a scene. I smiled, but it felt all wrong, a glass wall between me and the rest. When cake and coffee were done, I washed the pans and tried to forget the way my boss's words clung to me. Heading home, the city pressed around me in the cool night, full of noise and promise, but no place to rest. 2 months later, I lost the office job. Clara called me in, face pinched with impatience. "We're downsizing," she said. "It's not personal. This was always a stepping stone for you, wasn't it?" For 3 days, I pretended it didn't matter. Then the grief hit, slow and inescapable. Unemployment in Rome feels like falling into a black canal. The phone goes silent, the days tumble in on themselves. I tried to freelance, editing wedding reels, translating subtitles, but the work was thin and quick to dry up. At night, I roamed the city with my camera, shooting what I could: the old market in Testaxio, a boxer shadow punching on a rooftop, kids skipping stones in the puddles behind Stazioni Termini. I stitched together a short, imperfect, ragged, but full of all the ache I knew. I called it Inverno. I loaded it onto Vimeo. I sent it to festivals. More silence, more forms in my inbox. Rent lapped at my feet, friends faded. In a bar, I overheard two old classmates talking about me. He really thinks he's truff out, one of them snickered. I saw his film online, said the other, not even sound. Tragic. I left my drink half finished and walked out, the city lights blurring in my eyes. Sometimes grief clears you out, leaves you empty and quiet and ready. I sold the last of my camera lenses, bought a cheap second-hand bicycle. I stopped asking anyone for help. At the public library, I watched every Italian near-realist film I could find. I took notes. I planned. I went back to the streets, found new faces, outsiders, mostly other immigrants, Roma, the old men who play chess in the park. I offered them coffee, sandwiches, sometimes €10 to let me film their stories. This time I listened more than I spoke. I borrowed audio equipment from an ex-classmate sleeping on a broken futon near the railway. Together we shot at dawn, at noon, at the golden hour when Rome's cracked facades were as soft as velvet. I put everything I had into it, no filter, no tricks. My mother stopped calling so much. Papa's texts grew terse, then rare. Anna, trying to bridge the gap, sent me videos of her hugs and advice to accept the world as it is, not how you wish it. One evening, with a near-finished cut, I entered a major festival in Naples. I used my last €100 for the entry fee. A month later, the acceptance email came. I'll never forget the moment. It was a Tuesday, a windless dusk, the air carrying distant church bells and the scent of fried onions from somewhere below. The message glowed on my phone, urgent as a heartbeat. Congratulations, Strayed Perdute has been accepted for competition at the Napoli Nuovo Cinema Festival. I stared at the words until they lost their meaning. Then I laughed once, sharp enough to shock myself. My friend Marco, the sound guy, crashed open the bathroom door and found me sitting on the shower tiles, breathless and crying. "You did it," he said. "I did it," the words tasted strange as wine. "You did it," he said, and finally we both laughed, wild and trembling. The city outside paid no attention. Getting to Naples took every scrap of luck and begging I could muster. I borrowed clothes, slept on a friend's floor, lived on arancini and coffee from vending machines. The festival itself was a blur, red carpet, interviews, glasses of warm Prosecco. For the first time, strangers were watching for real. The theater was dark and humming, and when the final credits rolled, a woman in the second row wiped her eyes. Afterwards, a small-time critic wrote a piece, Rome's Forgotten Corners in Beautiful Suffering. A distributor slipped his card into my hand. My film didn't win, but it traveled, sent invitations from Paris, Madrid, even Buenos Aires. I worked as an assistant on another indie shoot, saved every cent and poured it into the next project. For a year then too, I lived in borrowed flats, slept on trains, made films from whatever scraps the city tossed my way. I grew leaner, the stories grew sharper, festivals came, some big, most small, but always bit by bit the world grew larger. Finally, a producer from Milan messaged me, "I saw your short, want to talk." The offer was simple and dizzying, a feature, funded, distributed, shot on the streets I knew best. The producer, a sharp-eyed woman named Sylvia, believed in my vision. "Roam through your eyes," she said, "show me the city everyone misses." We worked for months, writing, scouting, arguing details. Sometimes we shot until 4 a.m., actors drooping, coffee running thin, but it was happening, it was real. When Not Cruder * premiered at the Venice Film Festival, my picture flashed on magazine covers. Interviews followed, Rome all at once started returning my calls. Years passed in a rush of film stock and deadlines. I bought my mother a new oven, I helped Anna pay off her student loans. Papa sent a rare message. "I am proud of your effort, Fabrizio, even if I do not show." I never forgot the city's coldness nor my family's doubt, but it softened with time. I kept my head down, kept my stories true. Invitations came in, speaking at universities, judging student films, grant offers. Then came the invitation that changed everything, a local Roma film festival hosted in our old neighborhood. "Come home," the email said. "Let's show them where you're from." My breath caught. For a long time I stared at the calendar, the familiar Roman streets spinning in my mind. "Old wounds, old laughter," I wrote Anna. She replied instantly, "Do it." Nonna always said you have to lift people up by the roots if you want them to reach light, so I said yes. The day of the screening, Rome was all blue sky and hot, sticky wind. I wore a suit that felt too tight, pressed flat by memory. The film would play in the old outdoor cinema behind the Chiesa della Madonna. The chairs were plastic, the air heavy with basil and exhaust. People milled about, some familiar faces from childhood, others strangers. I saw Carmine, the butcher's son, now thick in the waist with saggy eyes. I saw Paula, who once called me Sinister Forlito, failed filmmaker, in front of her friends. Mama arrived with Anna, both in their Sunday best. Papa stood awkwardly behind, hands clasped, uncertain. I stood to the side as guests filtered in. I caught snatches of conversation. Remember him. Spent his 20s chasing cameras instead of a real job. I heard he lives in Milan now, probably thinks he's too good for us. Anna squeezed my hand. Just breathe. They don't see it yet. The festival director, a thin man with crows tattooed on his forearm, introduced me. Our own Fabrizio Ferraro, he grinned, international acclaim, and still ours. The hum quieted, people shifted. Skeptics, all of them accustomed to promises broken, talent squandered, the lights faded, the screen flickered to life. The film played, grey dawn over Roman apartment blocks. A father broken by joblessness but fierce in his devotion, a young girl searching the city for her lost brother, scenes layered with hunger and music and old pain. My mother's face wavered, eyes shining. Anna squeezed her shoulder. Papa stared ahead, mouth closed tight, not moving. Around me, whispers died down. The city outside grew silent, caught in the web of its own stories. Then came the moment. Midway through, the shot lingered on the old railway bridge, the sun flaring gold on crumbling stone. Anna, as a little girl, voice trembling, saying, "To find light we climb higher, even if it hurts." I watched faces turning, brows knitting, pride and disbelief wrestling in their expressions. At the end, the credits rolled. Silence hung for a full 10 seconds, thick as August air, then applause, real, slow, building, unstoppable. A neighbor's wife wiped tears, hiccuping softly. Carmen clapped hard, open-mouthed. Paula, for once, had nothing to say. The festival director beckoned, "Say something." I stood, legs loose under me. "Thank you for watching," I managed. "The city is hard, the world doesn't care about dreams. But sometimes, if we believe, if we hurt and keep going, it gives something back." A wave of noise rose up, warm and unpracticed. Mama threw her arms around me. "You did it, my son. You brought us with you." Papa gripped my shoulder, not trusting himself to speak. Anna kissed my cheek. "I told you, roots and light." In that moment, under the Roman stars, I let myself feel it. The grief, clear as water, finally rinsed away by something bright and steady. The faces in the crowd softened, once mock dreams reflected in their eyes, surprised and proud all at once. As we walked home as a family, the city seemed changed, Kinder awake, quietly promising. And I carrying the weight of years, at last coming home, not as a failure but as myself.